Welcome to the After Dark podcast. I'm Jess After Dark, and I am actually not here with my co-host today. I have my first guest. Hi, Kari.
Hi.
So Kari's very nervous. Everybody be nice to Kari. Don't bully her. Unless you're her husband. He might try to hit on you or bully you. We do not know what kind of comments we're going to get. But Kari is actually joining me today because I got a request for some very romantic-y type podcast style book recs, and I don't read a whole lot of romantasy, but my friend Kari here reads a whole bunch. So I wanted to introduce her because actually Kari and I met on TikTok. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of share our story first, and then Kari, you could take it away with just some recs that you brought in today. So ironically, I made a video, right? I made a video and I was wearing a Jacksonville Jaguars hoodie, which is the mascot for the football team here in Jacksonville, Florida. And I get a DM that said, this is going to be the weirdest thing that I've ever done, but I saw your video, saw you were wearing a Jags hoodie. Are you from Jacksonville? Because I live in this very specific area. And I was like, I live in that very specific area. So bless her heart, Kari doesn't have, you don't have a TikTok. You have a TikTok.
Yeah, I just watch videos.
Correct.
I don't make any.
Nope.
So all I have is a profile picture, which I think you told me later. You were like, yeah, you also had sunglasses in that
correct.
picture.
You could not see her face. She looks cute, but you can't tell. So she's like, to prove I'm not a creeper, here is my Instagram handle. Please go check me out. And you're big on Instagram. You are an Instagrammer for sure. I am not. So it's so funny. No, you are. You have your picture. So I started, me and Ryan sat down and I swear we audited your page. We were like, okay, so she's married. She has kids. She looks like she's a friendly person. And I was like, okay, Ryan, I think Kari's legit. And we decided to go out to dinner. We're like, okay, let's go out to dinner. And Ryan, before I left, was like, don't get kidnapped. And you said Brooke said the same thing.
Yeah.
Her husband said the same thing. And so we go to dinner, and you're a yapper. I'm a yapper. So we were chatting 3 hours.
I think so. But I think at the 2 hour mark was when Ryan texted you.
Yeah.
No, it was less than that.
I think it was an hour for Ryan. And he's like, are you still alive? And I was like, I don't know. Wait, I said something snarky back. And then, but it was almost 2 hours
before Brooks texted me. And I was like, I could be kidnapped and all the way to Savannah by now.
We did the math. I could have easily had you in Savannah by then.
Yeah.
And Brooks is like, well, I'm glad you're not. So that was good. So ever since, that was March.
Yes.
September. Now.
Yeah. And I wasn't even on TikTok for very long before I messaged you. I was just starting to get into it and saw this whole oops. I talked with my hands. And saw the whole book talk community. It was oh, cool. I've been getting into reading a lot more since having my son.
Yep.
And so I thought your videos were hilarious. And nobody wears Jacksonville
no
gear.
No one wears it unless you're here.
Live here currently. It's not
it's not like you're way across the country. I'm supporting the Jags. No, baby.
No one does.
You have to be here. So you shot your shot and it worked out. I feel like it's funny because we went to dinner and then next week was Kelsey's birthday party and I was like, I'm gonna invite them. And I was like, luckily it worked out because I'm like, that was so I really trusted you. I was like, come to my house. Let's go.
I know. So, well, I brought my toddler and my
correct.
husband.
Yeah, correct. Wes was here. We were good. So we've been friends ever since. And I feel like you read a lot. How many books do you think you average in a month?
Probably 10 to 18.
10, 18?
I think at least this year, it's crazy because last year, I think over the whole year, I read I don't know, maybe 50 or something that. And then this year, I'm already at 124.
Oh my God. That's great.
Yeah. It's just I feel like I've replaced a lot of the TV watching. Also, I feel like before I would rewatch the same shows over and over again, or I'd be watching a very mediocre show where I'm I'm not even enjoying this, but what else am I going to do?
What am I going to do?
So I feel I'll still watch things that actually pique my interest. But if it starts falling off, I'll stop. Which I feel now I'm enjoying how I'm spending my free time more.
You feel better about it. Like, I feel like if I spend the whole day watching TV, I feel like I just rotted all day. But if I spend the whole day reading, I'm like, I read a book today.
Yeah, and most of the time I'm still like on my phone just scrolling and doing stuff like that when I'm watching TV. So I've just like replaced a lot of it. But I mean, in previous years, even before last year, like I would have like on and off years where like maybe one year I'd read like 10 books or 20, and then it'd be like 2-3 years without me reading anything. And then when my son was born, it was like, oh, I like need a hobby.
You need a hobby. And like
that's
reading's
not, like,
the perfect one because you get to stay inside. Like you don't have to go out, and then but you could still connect with people, like talking about your books and stuff like that. I feel like you've said this before. You have had people confused on how you read so much, and it's like we're just trading dead time with something else. Like you have the time in your day to read that book. You just don't prioritize it, but you prioritize it, and you do a lot of audiobooks too, right?
Yeah, I do a good mix. So like if I'm going to the gym, which also I think the longest I've ever like gone to the gym consistently has been like maybe 1 or 2 months in my life, and then I would always fall off. And then since I switched to audiobooks instead of music, I actually enjoy going, which like
it's entertaining.
Now it's been about a year or so, little over a year since I've been like actually consistently going. So that's helped. Driving to work, appointments, things like that. I'll be like, especially before appointments, I have like the Kindle app on my phone too. So if I'm like just waiting for something like that, or Starbucks order, whatever, I'll just, get a little bit of time of reading there, or like at lunch.
Do you bring your Kindle places a lot, you think?
Depends if I like actually think if I'll read, then I will. But if not, like at least having it on my phone makes it works really easy.
I need to get. Do you have the Kindle app on your phone?
Yeah, so I'll use that a lot.
I need to get that. I'm so bad. I feel like I need to get that.
I only bought a Kindle. What was it, like April? I feel like before.
No way.
April or May, yeah.
After we met?
It must have been like around that
time.
Wow,
I didn't realize.
Yeah, so previously I would go to my library, like so I would use like Libby and Hoopla more for audiobooks, and then I would get like physical books from the library, or just buy a ton of books online.
Fair enough.
So I would do that before, and then I found the world of Kindle Unlimited.
So nice.
I was like planning to get one before our trip to France that we had in June. And so like a few months beforehand, I was like, okay, they're having, I'll just get it ahead of time and get the 3 months free Kindle Unlimited. Now I'm like, I think out of every subscription I have, this is the only one that like I'm probably Amazon Prime, but like those are the only two that like you could not rip from my hands. Like,
I will get rid of Netflix, everything else first.
So much on the Kindle Unlimited app, but then like pretty much between that, Hoopla and Libby, which those two are free because they're connected to your library, and those have like a lot of. Libby has more of the ones where you have like the holds in place, and they have like. I would say like somewhat of a bigger selection. And then Hoopla is instant borrows, and you get like a certain amount per month. So it could be anywhere from like 6 to 16 or something that, depending on your library. And those have a lot more audiobooks, and they also have a lot more of, I would say, like the dark romance. I feel like I see some of those
more selections
on there.
On that.
Devil's Night was on there, and I was listening to some of those. But then between that and then Kindle Unlimited, it's like, you would think that I would never buy books, but I do.
But we do.
Because I have a problem.
Yes, correct. Whoever said Kindles will save you money lied because you just buy it.
I know. But I will say I'm at least like not spending typically as much money on books that I don't like as much.
Fair. Because
before if it would be like too long for my library wait or something like that, I would just buy it. And now I feel like I'll still like sometimes get excited and be like buy ones that I've never read, things like that. But otherwise, it's also more like my trophies.
I love this book.
Correct. I love this series, so I'm gonna buy them and have them.
100%, because you never want to buy a book and then not like the book, because then what are you gonna do with that book? You never want to show it. I actually hide all my old books I no longer like behind this chair. It's a graveyard. No one will see it. Not that I don't like them, but I liked them when I read them. But now that I've grown as a reader, have you ever? Do you reread books?
So I will read them if it's been like a certain amount of time. Like The Nightingale, for example, is one that I like want to reread again this year. And I read it probably like 2 years ago.
Is that the one you gave me?
Yes.
I have it next to my bed. I have it on my thing. I'm like, I need to read this thing.
That one's really good. But I feel like it has to be a certain amount of time. But I also have the worst memory. So what's amazing is like even same thing with movies and TV shows. It can be a huge mystery where like
you're like, I don't know what's gonna happen.
I will have already seen it. And I'm like, who's the killer? Who is it? Like I've forgotten. My memory's gone. So bad. Like, I know. So I can rewatch things for the first time. I can reread it.
And it's fine.
I mean, but it has to be like a certain amount of time. I feel like I'm definitely not one of the ones that will like read a book and then immediately be like, let me reread it again.
Now. I've seen people do that. And for me, I feel like, have you ever like loved a restaurant when you were a kid? Like you loved it. And then you're an adult and you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten there in 12 years. And you go back and it is trash. Like you're like, why did I love this? That's my fear with rereading a book. I'm like, if I go back to read a book I read, I don't know, a year and a half ago, what if I reread it and I'm like, what the fuck?
I feel like though it's almost, for me at least, I feel like it's almost not the case where I'd be like nostalgic of it. So I feel like,
fair enough. Like you already know you love it.
Yeah, like exactly. So I'm like, oh my God, I remember this and these memories
so nice.
Versus I think if there's a book that I would have loved like 2 years ago, but I didn't read it until now.
Then your tastes have changed. Okay.
Yeah, where I'd be like, I would have loved that 2 years ago, but now like I would be like, this is
that's
bad.
So fair because that's happened with authors where I read books that they've written like later in their career and I love that author because of that. And then I've gone and read a book they wrote very early in their and you can tell it's very early and I still love that book even though honestly the writing was trash. Like they were just starting, but I've already like connected myself with that author. So I'm like, oh my gosh, her beginning work. Look at her and the growth she's made versus if it was a brand new author and I read their beginning, I might be like, what the heck is that? So I feel like that's fair. If you already have a tie to it, you're not going to start nitpicking it just to nitpick it.
Yeah.
So.
But it is fun to also, I feel like, see some of the authors grow. Like right now I'm reading Throne of Glass. And I think she started the first book when she was like 16 or 17.
That's what I heard.
And like,
well, I mean, she has so many. She had to have started that, right?
Exactly. But, like, it's crazy because, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still love the beginning books. But, like, as I've been going through it, I'm like, whoa, the character development, the, like, writing, everything is improved dramatically.
Correct.
So I'm like, it's kind of fun because, like, the character also starts at, like, 16 years old. So you're like, this is fun.
Get to see the development.
Look at you grow.
Is that what you're reading right now?
That's one of the ones. So I'm right now on the tandem read in Throne of Glass, which like it kind of feels like I've been on the same book for like a really long time because they're both chunky books.
So is that, so I remember talking to my friend Maria, is that where it's two different books, but somebody told us if you read like this chunk and then this chunk of this book and like you read them at the same time kind of thing. So you're kind of, did someone already put them together for you? Or are you flipping between the books?
So I have it on Kindle, so it makes it like, I feel like a little bit easier versus like carrying around, like I said, they're two huge books. But yeah, there's like guides online where it will tell you like what chapters to switch between and things like that. And I would definitely recommend it for this series because I already know that one of the books ends on a huge cliffhanger. So it's like, you don't want to have to go, they're the exact same timeline, just different characters. So it's like, you don't want to have to go all the way back and read a big book that's like, oh, before I find out what happens to this person, like, let me just continue.
It's kind of like when you read a chapter and the chapter ends on a cliffhanger and then the next page says 8 years ago. And you're like, what?
You're like, okay, let me
like,
get through
I just want to go back.
Yeah.
So,
and then I feel like what was it? The Powerless series. That one isn't like, I feel like a lot of people don't tandem read it, but I encouraged one of my good friends to because she was just starting with it. And there's like the main book and then a novella, which are at the same time. And she loved doing the little tandem read. So I feel like those can be fun sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be really hard if you did it like through audiobooks because I would just be like zoned out and all of a sudden I'd be like, oh wait, I was supposed to switch books, like,
what the heck?
a year ago.
I feel like I do that with audiobooks all the time. Like if I'm listening to an audiobook, it's to just zone out and just like listen to it versus when I read, I'm more like, you annotate and like you take your time with it. But audiobooks, I would not be able to keep up with.
I feel like my ADD, I definitely have to like rewind a lot with audiobooks sometimes. Like,
you're like, what the hell just happened?
If I like get on, I start thinking about something, I'm like, oh, let's just start over at the beginning of this chapter. Like,
how fast do you listen to your audiobooks? I'm sure it depends.
Yeah, like I was gonna say it's anywhere from 1.25 to 2.
Yep.
So like if it's more of a fantasy one where I'm like,
yes,
this is like something where I need to be paying attention more, and like I don't know, and the narrator too. But then some of the easy like romances, sometimes I can go. I would say like 1.25 to 1.75 are typically, but sometimes I'll go to 2.
Like I don't
know how people do like 4.
I don't. That's crazy. I'm listening to 1 right now at 2, but it's because it is very much like you could easily do it. But when I was trying to do ACOTAR, I'm gonna restart ACOTAR like from the beginning because I was trying to do it in a 2-week span because they were free on Audible, and I was like, I can do this. But then it got to a point where I was just like speeding it up, and I'm like, this is actually a really good book sped up. Like, I wonder if I actually just like allowed myself to digest the book. I feel like I would have loved it even more. So I'm gonna actually restart. But like, there was a point where I was trying at 1.5, and I was like, who the heck is where? Slow this down.
Especially, it's so funny. I always started off slower. Every single time I'll be like, okay, like let's start at 1.25 to 1.5. See how we're doing. Like get the characters down. Like let's start getting comfortable.
You're like, okay, I can get it.
Yeah, I feel like I have to be like that. And then, it also depends on what activity I'm doing too. Like if I'm listening to my audiobook, like if I'm driving at the gym versus, I don't know. Like,
something else.
If I'm doing like a little bit of data work, sometimes I'll also listen to it.
You can change it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I was doing like a mindless task a couple weeks ago. It took me like 2 to 3 days to do the mindless task. I think I got through like 2.5 audio, but I'm like, let's go. Let's do it.
Honestly, it makes such a difference too, especially like if you have like, I remember I had I didn't pack away any of my son's stuff for the whole year. I was just like collecting all of his clothes. I'm like, I'll go through it, organize it, seal it all up. And so at the 1 year mark, I was like, okay, let's find a good audiobook and let's get to it.
I swear it's so motivating, especially if you almost set like a rule. I started running last summer. I don't run now, but like I run in the fall. And I tell myself I won't listen to my audiobook unless I'm cleaning or running. I ran so much. I cleaned so much. My house was always clean, and I would run because it's like, wait, I want to listen. Which you're not going to stop your run mid whatever. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm a very slow runner though, so I can listen to a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if I would be able to listen to an audiobook while running, but I really tried. I hate cardio. I don't do like anything.
I would always try to run listening to music, but I know how long a song is. It's 3 minutes average. So I'd be like, how are we only halfway through a song? Oh yeah. What the heck? But like the audio, I just like blank out and like listen to the book, and I'd be like, oh, I actually have.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely makes a huge impact. I don't know, just like music, I would be like, constantly like thinking of the numbers. Like, okay, I'm a quarter of the way through this song. Like, I have 5 minutes.
We're only at the first verse.
That's like 2.5 minutes, which is,
you're like, am I done yet? And you're like, I'm still on the first song. What the heck? Yeah. That's 100% how it would be. But give it a shot. When I start running again, I'll just drag you with me.
Oh God.
I go by the Y. We could do a loop. 2 loops.
I really like walking.
Brooks. we're taking Kari. But that's good. I love doing the audiobooks, but also reading. I thought I would struggle going between the two.
Yeah.
Or like when I first heard people read different books at the same time, I thought I would struggle, but I actually don't.
Yeah.
So I can be reading a couple different books. But you were saying if you're trying to do 2 fantasy books at the same time, I could see that getting so like they have to be different books. Like
I can do multiple romances, everything, but if I have a in-depth fantasy book, like I feel like now I'm finally getting to the point with my Throne of Glass where I'm like, okay, I feel like I can do another fantasy book at the same time because I typically have anywhere from like 2 to 5 or 6 books at once because I'm just like a very ADD person that's like all over the place and a mood reader too.
Yep.
So I'll like, go back and be like, oh, I'm in the mood for like a super spicy, smutty book right now. Like,
right now in this moment.
Yeah, like, okay, well, this YA mystery and this
really
YA
smutty
fantasy. This is like, there's certain ones where I'm like, okay, well, none of these are hitting what I'm like in the mood for.
Yep.
So I like to just have like a bunch of books going at once.
Yeah, but as long as they're different enough, you're not going to switch your YA detail with your dark, smutty book. Like, they're like two different vibes. So that's fair. I feel like that works.
Yeah, and then I feel like the narrator also has like a big impact too on like how I feel about audiobooks. Like where there's somewhere I'm like, I feel like this would have been like a 4.5, and I'm knocked it down to like a 3.5 because this narrator is.
Thanks for saying that, because I feel the exact same way. Like, I feel like there's times where I'm like, I wish I read it. Like, I would have been better in my own head than.
Yeah.
I didn't like how you said that word. Stop.
Yeah,
get the ick
like,
real quick.
I don't know. Sometimes like, and I'm fine with the narration still when they're what is it? The dual narration, not the duet. The duet's the better one where it's like,
the guys always say the guy's side and the girl. Yeah,
but there's some that with the dual that I'm perfectly fine with, but then there's some where I'm like, I do not like.
I don't like when you're saying the girl's part or vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. But there's been a few audiobooks where I've preferred the audiobook over the books. Like, the Boys of Tommen series with like Binding 13, all those ones.
Okay.
Most that have accents are like
they're really good.
But
that's
like
fair.
that one was really good because they're like in Ireland. And I was just like, I'm loving this
because you wouldn't be able to do that in your head.
Yeah, exactly.
You
but
never
then
would.
When I was reading the next books, I was still like kind of remembering their voices when they didn't have the audiobooks out for those ones.
Because you've already heard them. Yeah, it's kind of like when you see a fan pic of like what they look like, and then you read the book and you're like, can you visualize a person based off a description?
And I like to go on to like TikTok or like Google or whatever and like try to find either like a fan cast or like fan art or like
to see what they would look like.
I like to do that because I mean it helps me visualize, but I also have learned to be more careful about like sometimes having to wait in the book or series to do it because like it can sometimes spoil it if you like look up the character and you're like, oh, this is with a different person than who she's with right now. Like,
I don't know.
Okay,
that's fair. That's true. You're like, oh, I did not know that's what's happening. Yeah, I can't visualize people at all. Like, they say there's
thing.
The apple. Yeah, exactly.
I'm definitely. I would say like not like. Just
I'm like a 3 maybe.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I feel like.
It's like I see the outline. There might be a little bit of shading, but that's.
And I also feel like I have to like almost like take a break or like be very slow when I'm reading to like try to visualize certain parts, which I'll do. Like I would say I'm actually not a quick reader, which like for my amount of books that I've read is like funny because I would say I'm a pretty like
you're not like a speed
below.
reader. Yeah. You just have you prioritize the time to read more.
I spend a lot of time doing or reading, but I do not read quickly.
That's fair. That's fair. You actually digest what you're reading.
I like to, especially ones that I'm like really into, I like want to read every word. Like, sometimes if it's going on for like a scenery and I'm like not as interested in that part, like sometimes I'll, read a little bit quicker, but like for the most part, if it's one that I'm really interested in, and I'm like,
take your time.
Yeah, I don't want to skim it. No. I want to like read each word, and sometimes I'll reread, like especially like certain
Wait,
things.
say that again?
Yeah, oh my god, exactly. I'm like, let's go back.
I want to see this. But the visualization, and that's what always makes you laugh so hard. Well, you saw, I got a comment that someone was like, you're cheating when you're reading a book. And I'm like, what do you think we're seeing? Like, what do you, when people compare it to corn, I'm like, what do you see? Like, I don't know if you can just conjure up all these body parts in your head, like on point. I cannot. Like, I don't know what's happening.
I just imagine in your head, you're like, it's just the little like slideshow of stick figures, like literally just like
wow. So it's like the flip book of the stick figures moving. That's what I'm seeing.
Edit that in right here.
Add it. So that's just the funniest thing because you can always tell who's a reader and who's not just by how dumb those comments are. I'm like, what do you think is happening?
But also, I mean, I don't even care like if someone watches like porn.
Yeah,
like that's
correct. Do your thing. Like That actually never bothered me, which is so funny because in our relationship, I've never like had an issue with that. And so, but Ryan actually doesn't. But when people come to me, I was like, we get a lot of men that are like, if you read that, your man better be allowed to do this. I'm like, he can. He doesn't want to.
I was going to say, it maybe depends on what genre.
Like,
how dark romance are we? I don't know.
I don't think anyone actually wants to watch it. But I'm just laughing. I was like, okay, whatever. People say the dumbest things. We get that all the time. You just have to like.
It's important to have someone that like supports your hobbies.
100%.
Like, I mean, my husband, you know, he's fun. Like he's never surprised when he sees, you know, package. He's like, is this more books?
Another book? Here you go, babe.
But like even this weekend, like we went to the library and like they have really good deals on books. So I always like try to go into the bookstore. So he like took our toddler and they were playing. Well, I could just like browse the books, or we'll go and like to the bookstores a bunch. But it's funny too because like he has a few books. Like what was it? We went to this one bookstore and I bought like 4 books. So like I don't know. It was like $70 or something like that. I have no idea. But he bought 2 books. And his were like 75
so
total.
much more.
And it was like but he'll like read certain books, but I'm like, you know, you do you, I do me. Like, and sometimes we read in bed together.
You guys read together.
Yeah, but he's also a video gamer.
I was going to say,
there's plenty of
Kari is the reader gamer. That's their relationship. Yes. They've got the perfect combo of like, I'll play my game, I'm going to read my book. We're good to go.
Exactly.
So it works out.
Yep. So like if he's like raiding with the boys, doing whatever.
Great night. Let's go.
Exactly. He's over there and I'm like, okay, great. Now I can like also set up my TV. I love to have like the YouTube like scenery, like little things on, especially like now that it's fall. I'm like,
oh, that's so nice. Like you set the scene.
It's like, oh, here's a fireplace. It's raining. I'm in a cabin today.
I love that.
I'll switch it up. Sometimes I'm on the beach at sunset, you know, but I'll like put that on the TV.
That's
I have my
smart.
whole setup with the Kindle. And I'll just like be reading while he's playing his games. We'll switch off who has the puppy in their room. Like, our son's in bed by 7:30.
Correct. So you have all this time.
I was going to say, as soon as it's 7:30.
Yep.
But like 7:45 at the latest.
Yep.
I have like whatever drink I want. I have like my little under eye things on.
You have your bonnet on.
I have my bonnet on. Yeah. I'm in my bed.
Done.
I'm a 70-year-old woman. Sometimes my heating pad. I'm like, I've got my whole setup by like 7:45. So like I get a good chunk of hours. Plus I suck at sleeping. So like, you know,
you're knows? Up early too. Yeah. Like a lot of times she'll be like, I was up at 4, so I just decided to read. What the heck? I'm a sleeper. You are not. Like I'm done.
Yeah. So if I do go to the gym, I like will wake up at like 5:25. But even today, I've off work and it was 6 o'clock, and I'm just like, I guess I'm gonna make coffee and read my book.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my god. Yeah. There you go.
So reading my book in bed, but and then like I told you earlier, like off the podcast, if I'm like having trouble sleeping at night because of like the insomnia, because like I get a lot of anxious thoughts, like where I'm like thinking about everything I have to do,
100%.
Things like that. Like sometimes I'll like put my eye mask on and like I'll set the little timer on the apps for the audiobooks. So then that way it's like, okay, I'll just listen
and hopefully fall asleep.
It will be like, okay, I'll only go for 30 minutes so I can like find where I was.
I love that. Like, because I was telling her, we were actually supposed to do this yesterday, but I didn't sleep. And I was like, girl, I cannot do this. And she was like, yeah, no problem. And so I was telling her how it was like 3:30 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. So I read, but as soon as I would put my Kindle down, my thoughts would start going like crazy. And she was like, this is what I do. So I'm going to try that. I need an eye mask.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think.
Well, I also have like it's not exactly LASIK, but like kind of similar. So if I don't sleep with an eye mask, my eyes are so dry the next day.
They?
Like I die.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I have my little bonnet and eye mask on every night.
Brooks is like, wow.
Yeah. I like your.
That's it.
Really good. You know, the once a month that I wear my retainer. You know.
I love it. It's like those girls, they'll be like, the uglier you go to bed, the prettier you wake up. And they have like the eye masks on and the face mask and all this stuff. And
they don't show the husband like sitting next to them in bed, just being like, oh,
hey. I feel like I would kick it all off. Like I feel like if I have too much on my face, I would literally.
Don't get me wrong. Like my bonnet ends up like halfway.
I wake the morning, where is it? I used to wear a bonnet. Now that I don't have the long hair anymore, I don't wear my bonnet as much because it like pushes my hair back, and then I wake up with my hair like, I don't know, like up in the air. But yeah, when I would sleep with the bonnet, half the time I'd wake up and I'd be like,
well, you also don't have like, I feel like your hair is like nice and not frizzy.
Now that I cut it all off. When it was long, it was frizzy. But yeah, I don't have like, you have like curly hair.
Yeah,
like naturally.
Not
Not today.
I did it for you guys.
I know. Carrie showed up. I was like, okay, pretty. And she sat here for like 10 minutes. Do I look good? Do I look good? I was like, baby, you look perfect. So I'm proud of you. You're looking good. But anyway, we digress. This is where were we?
Podcast about books.
Yep. So fun fact, this podcast ended up being an hour long. So we are taking a quick intermission, and we will have the rest of this podcast next week. See you guys then.